Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm the project coordinator for the Urban Long Forest project. Welcome to our first webinar. So we're going to be running a series of webinars as part of the project, and we're going to be streaming live on Facebook and YouTube as we are now. Today I'm going to be telling you a bit about the project, how you can get involved, and some of the things we've got coming up. I'll be delivering the webinar in English, but I've also got Jack with me, who's our comms officer and is also a Welsh speaker.
Siwmai pawb, Jack ydw i o'r tîm Marchnata Cyfathrebu Cadwch Gymru Daclus. Bydd y webinar yn Saesneg, ond ni'n croesawu cwestiynau mewn Cymraeg, felly rhowch yn y sylwadau ac byddwn yn ateb yn y diwedd. So I'm Jack and I work in the marketing and communications team. The webinar is going to be in English, but we are welcoming questions in Welsh. So please put them in the comments and Morgan can answer them at the end.
Awesome. So I can see we've got a couple people logged on and everything. If you want to check in the chat while we just sort of wait for a couple more people to log on, kind of where you're coming in from, that'd be amazing. Oh, we got one from Cardiff. That's cool because we'll be talking a little bit about some of the stuff we'll be doing in Cardiff later. Yeah, got a couple more people joining now. Amazing. So what I'll do is I'll start going through what we're going to go through. So like I said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project and kind of things we're going to be doing, as well how you can get involved really. So like I said, introduction to the Urban Long Forest project. So it's all about hedgerows basically. And we've been funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. We've been successful in getting a 3-year project, which is really exciting. So we've got 3 years to be able to sort of do the work on the ground really. It should be really good. So like I said, it's all kind of about hedgerows. So kind of why hedgerows really? So 50% of British hedgerows were lost between 1940 and 1990. After the sort of end of the Second World War, a lot of industry came into areas, meaning that we needed sort of these massive combine harvesters and everything kind of industrializing the farming. As a result, then a lot of the hedgerows were kind of taken out, unfortunately. 78% of remaining hedgerows are in unfavorable condition, which came from a report done by NRW about 10 years ago. Which is a massive shame, really. So the only thing that we've got kind of protecting our hedgerows at the moment is the hedgerow regulations, which is from back in like 1997. So what that basically says is we're not allowed to remove hedgerows. Not allowed to remove them, but as you're probably aware, like if housing developments happen and that kind of thing, sometimes sections are removed, which is a massive shame, and sometimes they're then replanted with brand new ones. But obviously biodiversity sort of benefits are nowhere near what the kind of really established ones were, unfortunately. So the Sustainable Farming Scheme of 2026 has sort of changed recently. So what that basically states is that sort of farmers used to have a target of tree cover, which did kind of annoy some farmers, unfortunately. And it made it quite restricted for them, which now it's actually changed. So it's actually 10% habitat. So that habitat will cover hedgerows, but it'll also cover things like ponds and meadows and that kind of thing. So it's actually celebrating some of the habitats they've actually got on site. There's over 2,000 species that do depend on hedgerows, whether that's sort of different mammals that use them for sort of foraging facilities or sort of different cover and that kind of thing. And there's also, sorry, that just flickered a little bit. And then there's also different bugs and all that kind of stuff that rely on them as well. Different plants and trees and everything are obviously in there as well, which is sort of really good. So they are really, really important sort of habitats, really. As you can see on here, you've probably seen some of these. So these, the picture on screen there is just kind of showing some of this sort of hedge was planted a couple of years ago. So that's kind of the new growth that you'll get from it. As you can see, probably the sort of covers and everything probably need to be removed on this one, but they do sort of get established, which is pretty good. So hedgerows have been, we've had them for a long time, a couple of thousand years. So they've been used as a stock barrier since the Bronze and Iron Age, and they did actually used to be circular, and were used, basically to keep sort of different stocks, whether that's cows or sheep and that kind of thing, sort of within an area. And they're really good at storing carbon, reducing flooding, and connecting different habitats as well. You have a lot of butterflies and invertebrates and that kind of things that will use hedgerows to sort of jump across them. And then you've also got things like bats. Bats love hedgerows. They literally will fly sort of along the top of hedges, sort of catching all the different bugs and all that kind of thing, and sort of foraging that way. So the picture you can see on the screen, so the one on the left-hand side is some axe heads from the Iron Age that were found in Colwyston in the Vale of Glamorgan. So these were found by a metal detector person, basically, during lockdown. So they were out and about and managed to find these that are all sort of buried. And then on the right-hand side, there's some of the tools that we actually use for hedge laying now. So different axes, different bill hooks and that kind of thing. So you can kind of see they're extremely similar shapes and sizes and that kind of thing. It's very, very similar. So we think they were probably sort of laid hedges in a very similar way as they do today, which is really cool. It's one of those things of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's sort of kept going as well. So obviously I said about the sort of 2,000 species that rely on hedgerows. You can see in this photo is sort of picture here. This was done by Dawn Cooper for BBC Wildlife magazine back in 2020. It is an artist's representation. It has been pointed out by a hedgehog expert that the hedgehogs in it are actually African pygmy hedgehogs, not our native ones, but a bit of artistic license included in this. But you can see in this kind of picture, these are kind of the sort of lots of different species that rely on it. You've got different plant species, so you've got all the different foxgloves, all the different ferns and that kind of thing. Plus you've got the different trees that are involved in there as well. Different fungi as well. So some fungi will rely on the dead wood that's as part of there, and some of it actually lives on the live wood as well. And then you've even got things like deers. So a lot of deers will leave, and deers and foxes do it as well, will leave their young sort of shaded in the hedgerow while they go off and hunt and they go and forage, because it's a nice sort of safe place for them to be. And you've even got stuff like lizards and all that kind of stuff. And obviously a ridiculous amount of birds love hedges as well, both for nests and forage and all that kind of stuff. So I really do like this picture. It's quite a nice kind of visual representation of sort of getting to really think about the kind of things that are involved in the hedge. So this is probably not a strange image to a lot of people. You've probably seen this quite a lot. So these are kind of how hedges are kind of managed at the moment. A lot of them are sort of done in this way because it's sort of easier and cheaper, basically, for farmers to go along with and sort of flail them. If you've done any kind of thing around how best to sort of do any pruning to trees, you'll kind of see that this is quite a really bad way of doing it. It can sort of damage the tree. It causes these great big sort of necks and all this kind of stuff where you have different kind of scar tissue, basically, of the tree sort of building up. What also happens when they're flailing it is it takes about 2 years for any fruit or nuts to be produced on sort of a tree. So if you're then cutting off that new wood, you're not getting any of the fruit and nuts coming on it, which basically means that obviously, there is no forage for birds and different animals that rely on it, and for us as well, like we forage from them as well. So it is a real shame that this is how it's done, but unfortunately farmers haven't got a lot of money, so we can't really blame them for this. Is kind of the way they have to do it, unfortunately. So these are ones that are quite local to myself, and it was quite sad to see because it just leaves like a massive hole in it, basically. And this is kind of what can happen long term. So this is what is kind of referred to as a ghost hedge, because it kind of looks like Casper the Friendly Ghost. If you see the big body at the top with kind of the little spindly legs. So this is on a farm where obviously the hedge has just kind of been left, and then animals have kind of grazed underneath it. You can still see that obviously it does provide a little bit of shelter, but not much. And you can even see on the picture on the left-hand side where the sort of trunk of the tree is laid down. So this was a hedge that was laid previously, but obviously it's just not been, done anytime soon. It still has some biodiversity value. You've still got kind of blossom on there, so you're still going to get the kind of fruit. And so this is mainly a hawthorn one, because it's quite close to the sea. So you will get the hallberries and stuff, but nothing in comparison to the sort of benefits it could be having, really. So it is just kind of like a little short tree. But this is kind of what happens when these are sort of left, really, and not managed, unfortunately. So where do we kind of come into it? So Keep Welsh Tidy has been, protecting Welsh hedgerows for a number of years. So it started off in 2014, where we did a pilot in Bannau Brycheiniog, which was mainly working with farmers and landowners to try and get them to look at a more sustainable way and a more nature-friendly way of managing their hedges. It went really, really well. So we were able to gain some more funding then from the National Lottery Heritage Fund in 2017 for our first sort of national project. And this was working in the Four Corners of Wales. So we did some work on Ynys Môn, Anglesey, around some red squirrel habitat. We were connecting some of those habitats. We did some work up in Wrexham. We then did some stuff in Pembrokeshire and also some stuff in Monmouthshire as well. So sort of working in the Four Corners of Wales. Again, it was working with a lot of landowners, whether they were farmers or we did some stuff for like RSPB and National Trust. Working again with volunteers to sort of teach people how to do the hedge laying, to sort of look after these hedges a little bit better, really. From that, we kind of realized there's a bit of a gap. So, we do have some hedges in more urban environments. So the lottery gave us some funding in 2024 to basically do a development phase of this project, so the Urban Long Forest. And we had about 18 months where we sort of planned the project, spoke to a couple of landowners, spoke to different communities and the kind of thing they would like for the project, and then put in our sort of bid for the full 3-year project. Happy to say we are here because that was successful. So they were successful in getting a 3-year funding for the project, which is amazing. So it started officially sort of April this year. It'll be running until June 2029, which is amazing, really. So it is going to be slightly different to our previous runs of the project, but it's great that we're going to have 3 more years sort of protecting our Welsh hedgerows. So as I said with the previous project, it was working kind of the Four Corners of Wales. Because this is more urban, we're going to be working in 4 different counties this time. So we're going to be working in Cardiff, Caerphilly, Neath Port Talbot, and then Wrexham up in the north. These counties are all kind of similar, but all quite different at the same time. All of them sort of 100 or so years ago were mainly farmland. Industries kind of come into those areas, and then over the time that's kind of changed now. Some of that industry's fallen apart. And yeah, there's sort of a really big gap in that, really. A lot of kind of green careers and the kind of sort of more nature-based careers are kind of dwindling in those areas as well. We have got, quite a few amazing green pockets where hedgerows are kind of getting forgotten about and that kind of thing as well. So they're very different counties, but they're all quite similar as well. So how you can basically get involved in the project. So one of the things we're going to be doing is restoring old and unmanaged urban and peri-urban hedgerows. So they are a priority habitat. They've got really, really good biodiversity benefits, as mentioned. And obviously when you manage them in a way, they are better for stock proofing. So keeping cows and sheep in a field. For noise and wind as well, they work as a really, really good barrier when they're laid. And a really good privacy barrier. You can kind of see in the image here, this is some people laying a hedge. So what they do is basically, it looks quite brutal, but they do a pleaching cut basically towards the base of the tree. Leave quite a small bit on there, but it still means that all the kind of sap and everything can still get down from the roots and feed the tree and effectively lay this down. So that's why it's kind of called hedge laying. What will then happen is when the growing season starts again, these new shoots will then shoot up. And improve the thickness of the hedge, which is a really good way of doing it. It kind of mimics what would happen in kind of woodlands when we had kind of the apex predators in there, when we had like boar and that kind of thing running through the woodlands, where they would sort of knock over trees and it would sort of cause this regeneration basically and cause more growth to be spurting through. So as I said, it does improve stock, wind and privacy barriers. We're going to help preserve the traditional skills as well. Like I said, hedge laying in some form has been happening since kind of the Iron and the Bronze Age. And it does increase carbon storage as well. So I know obviously it's it's kind of one of those key things that a lot of people say about carbon storage, but it is really good for that. Having a hedge, the reason why we call it sort of long forest is if you think of the biodiversity sort of benefits of kind of the soil and everything within a forest, you get all that mycelium kind of talking to each other and having time to develop over time. You get the same kind of thing from a hedge. Nothing within that sort of soil structure underneath the hedge is going to move. It's all going to kind of stay there. But actually, we can get hedges in a lot smaller areas than we can build a woodland. You can kind of see the pleaching cuts I was talking about a bit easier from this picture. And you can sort of see the stems that kind of left over in the way it's bent through. From this picture, you can see there are some gaps in it. But like I said, as and when the sort of growing season starts and they start sprouting up, you're going to get a lot more growth coming through and, making it a really nice, thick, biodiverse hedge. As part of it as well, we're going to be planting some new hedgerows. So they're going to be mixed biodiverse native hedges. So it's all going to be native species. And we're going to kind of do a mixture of hedges. So it's all going to kind of depend on the community. So some of the groups we've spoken to want some defensive kind of spiky hedges if they've had things like antisocial behavior and that kind of thing, and they want to sort of create a barrier. We're going to be having those sort of hedges. Some want more sort of edible foraging hedges, so we'll be putting more sort of forageable species in there. And some are going to be working with sort of young children. So when it's kind of those kind of things, we'll be removing, not using some of the spikier ones and having kind of more softer sort of species and that kind of thing that people can sort of really engage with. As you can see, like I've said about obviously the sound and noise barrier, this is a hedge that we planted as part of the development phase in Cardiff. And we planted that to try and provide that kind of barrier space to keep their sort of community garden a bit more enclosed, and a bit more nicer place to hang out than just having sort of cars whizzing past, really making a lot of noise, and you get all that sort of smog smell and everything as well. Another thing we're going to be doing as part of the project, which was a suggestion as part of the development phase, was including orchard trees as part of the hedge. So this is my little sort of pictorial demonstration of what we're going to be doing. But if you kind of imagine hedgerows that you've seen sort of more in the countryside and more rural locations, you'll have the long hedges, and then every now and again you'll have a big standard tree, which is usually kind of an ash or an oak. We're going to be kind of replicating that, but in more urban environments. So the orchard trees then, when we do eventually lay the hedges, they will remain standing. So there'll be the standard kind of tree in that. And what it kind of does is it adds kind of another canopy immediately to that hedge. I think we've all kind of seen sort of newly planted hedges, and they are a bit small and a bit rubbish looking, if I'm honest, for the first sort of couple of years until they get a bit established. But actually adding the orchard trees in there, it kind of brings a bit more visibility and a bit more instant gratification for communities as well. Longer term, it's going to improve the forageability of that as well, because not only are you going to have the fruit and nuts from the trees that are within the hedge, you're going to have like the apples and the pears and all that kind of thing from the orchard trees as well. It's going to provide better biodiversity, not only for the species that we're planting, but also for different butterflies and different invertebrates as well. So there's some moth species that rely on certain orchard trees specifically to grow, both a food source for the kind of caterpillars and also for the sort of adult moths as well. Like I said, we are going to leave them standing as when we do lay it, and it's like a mini urban food forest as well. We're going to be encouraging people to do little wassails and kind of waking up the trees at the beginning of the season and really helping sort of bring communities together and learn a bit more about it as well. We are going to be using sort of heritage orchard varieties. So they will be varieties that are native to Wales, that we've had for could be a couple of 100 years and that kind of thing. As much as possible, we will make them as local as we possibly can. So things like in Cardiff, you've got the Gabaltha apple. You've got the Machen apple in Caerphilly, and as much as possible, we at least have a couple of those within each hedge. We might have to vary them out a little bit, but they are all going to be sort of Welsh heritage varieties as well. So as part of the project as well, we're also going to be supporting the development of some tree nurseries. So it's going to be supporting some existing tree nurseries that are in place, community ones, and establishing some new ones. We're going to be supporting them to support local provenance as well. So local provenance is getting tree seed from a local area growing that on then into a tree and then planting that tree back within that local area. Rather than, there's a lot, there are commercial tree nurseries, but a lot of the time it's kind of shipping them in from like further away places in the UK, bringing them down from Scotland and that kind of thing, which, they're going to be really hardy. But again, we don't really want to be using kind of lorries and that kind of thing, bringing them all the way down here when we could set up some local ones within, the local authorities that can be used locally as well. We're going to be supporting the tree nurseries to get UK ISG accreditation, which what that basically means is they can actually get like a plant passport for the trees, so enable them to actually sell them. And it could be then, so, the tree packs are available through things like the Woodland Trust and that kind of thing. They'd be able to buy through those trees as well, buy through those nurseries as well. There's some amazing community groups that run community tree nurseries or community woodlands, but they always struggle with kind of income, whether it is just to kind of cover their costs, whether it's to cover sort of sundries or insurance. It is always something that they do struggle with. So this should be able to bring them a bit of an income to keep them going, really. And again, it's kind of learning all those local skills as well. So one of our tree nurseries that we're going to be setting up is in HMP Burn in Wrexham, which is a prison in Wrexham. It's, as far as I'm aware, I think it's the largest prison in the UK, and it's one of the newer built ones. But as part of that, we're going to be able to do some on-site training with them. Some of our partners are going to be able to go in to do training, and I'm going to be running like a live virtual tour of an existing nursery for them. So if you say to average Joe blogs about a tree nursery, they probably can't visualize what a tree nursery is or looks like. And chances are the people in the prison aren't going to be able to understand that either. So doing a live one of that, so they'll be able to ask live questions, and they can actually plan the tree nursery themselves. There's some lovely grounds within the prison. They already do some growing at the moment of sort of bed-in plants and everything to keep sort of interest and kind of green space within there as well. So it should be a really good project for them to do. As part of it, they're going to be able to develop their skills, and it should hopefully support rehabilitation within the community as well. The prison work really closely with sort of different work placements and that kind of thing when they're coming out of prison and when they're sort of resettled. And we're hoping that obviously those connections will help them get skills to be able to get jobs and that kind of thing in the future as well, and reduce the risk of them actually going back inside, which is ultimately what we want to happen when people come out of prison. And we've already had one session in there, a training session about biosecurity and that kind of thing. The prisoners really enjoyed it. They were really, really engaged. A lot of them have some really good horticultural knowledge already from the current projects that are going on within there. So yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing how that tree nursery plans out. So as part of obviously setting up the tree nurseries, one of our partners is Llais y Goedwig, the Voice of the Woodlands. So they support community tree nurseries at the moment and also support community woodlands. If you've not heard from them before, have a look. They've got a Facebook page. I think they just set up a Instagram as well. There's some really good information on there. Their website as well has got loads of really good information on trees and growing things and, how to get involved in this kind of stuff as well. They've also got CoidNet as well, which is a big directory if you're looking for anything kind of goods from the woods, basically. So whether you're looking for tree surgeons, horse loggers, tree nurseries, that kind of thing, they're really, really good. They've got loads of different knowledge. So they're going to be supporting by doing some training sessions with each of the tree nurseries. So again, it's going to be on local provenance, seed storage and processing. Different seeds need different things doing. Some of them you can literally just put them in a bit of ground, and yeah, there's certain trees that just grow really, really well like that. But some of them have to be sort of cold storage. Some of them have to be sort of processed in different ways. So that's part of the training they'll be doing. Tree nursery design as well, which is pretty important. And obviously biosecurity as well, which is really important, to make sure that, all this time and money and everything isn't being spent growing these trees for then some sort of pathogen to come in and unfortunately kind of wreck all their stock, really. So yeah, we're really looking forward to those. And they're a really good day as well. So the first half of it is a bit more theory, sort of looking into kind of the whys and the hows and all that kind of thing. And then it's usually a nice little practical session in the afternoon. So yes, you can get your hands dirty and obviously do some seed processing and stuff, which is usually quite a fun session. They're also going to be doing some orchard tree management sessions as well. So We've already run one of these up in Wrexham, which was really, really well attended, on sort of formative pruning and pruning of the orchard trees. Obviously, putting orchard trees in the hedgerows, they do need slightly different care than a standard hedgerow. So we will be looking at doing some pruning training with people as well to make sure that these can obviously be looked after long term, and also doing some grafting training as well, because obviously we do want the tree nurseries to be able to grow on some heritage orchard trees to be able to obviously sell as well. So with kind of orchard trees, if you got sort of a golden delicious apple from Tesco's and planted the seed of that, it's not going to grow a golden delicious tree, unfortunately. What will happen is you will grow something similar to a crab apple, which is fine for biodiversity purposes and birds love them, but they're not very tasty, if I'm honest. You can make jams and stuff, but to make sure you kind of continue the genus of kind of heritage varieties, or any kind of varieties really, you need to graft them, which is effectively taking a cutting from an existing tree, effectively getting it to grow onto a different rootstock. And what that will do is that will sort of replicate those genes and sort of keep that variety going. So we're going to be doing some training around that, so that all the tree nurseries are going to be able to do that as well. All these sessions are going to be on our Eventbrite page, but will all be on our kind of social media channels as well and promoted on there. So another one of our partners is Coed Cadw, so the Woodland Trust in Wales. And what they're going to be doing is doing some ancient tree inventory training days. It's quite hard to say. So it does relate to hedgerows. Because if you think about a hedgerow and kind of those standard trees I was talking about, actually, they are where a lot of our ancient and veteran trees are. And a lot of them are in farmland, but we've also got a lot of them in urban locations as well. And again, we will be we'll be having one of these, so one in person in each county each year, and we'll also be having an online taster session as well, which is good. So it means that anybody in Wales can watch that and get involved. And then obviously if you want to get involved in one of the ones in the local counties, you can. As much as we have, obviously, we've got the funding to work in the 4 counties I mentioned. If you live in a neighbouring county and you want to travel over to one of the sessions, you're free to. Anybody can attend the sessions. We don't, I know with some sort of funding pots, you have to kind of prove what local authority you're in, but that's not something that we need to do for the project, which is really good. So if you live in a neighbouring county and you want to get involved, you're free to. The ancient tree inventory training days are really good. They, again, sort of in the morning, it's a bit more theory, looking at kind of the different features and that kind of thing. And then in the afternoon, you get to go out and meet some amazing old trees. You can have a look at the ancient tree inventory, which is available online. If you search for ATI Woodland Trust or Ancient Tree Inventory Woodland Trust, you can have a look at the map. And it covers the whole of the UK. Some areas are more covered than others. So some areas, it's very sparse, which is some of the areas we're going to be working in, trying to fill that inventory. And then other areas are got loads and loads of stuff. So if you want to have a look at one that's got loads of pins on it, have a look at Sherwood Forest. There is a ridiculous amount of veteran and ancient trees on the inventory on there, which is amazing. It's lovely to look at. The major oak is actually number 1 on the inventory, as it should be. But yeah, it's really good, interesting to have a look at. You don't need to do the training to start registering trees on the inventory. You can just have a look at the sort of instructions on there and just sort of register them on there, and then one of the verifiers will go out and check that tree. So I'm trained as one of the verifiers, so I'm one of the ones that goes out and gets a little list of all the trees that have been registered in my area, and I go out and meet these amazing trees and get them officially added, which is really good. So yeah, keep your eye out for that one. We're going to be doing the intro to that in September. So it'll be a little hour session, which, yeah, it's a really nice session, just sort of understand a bit about the inventory. So another bit of training we're going to be doing is on hedge laying itself. So this is a volunteer-led project, so we're going to be training up volunteers as part of it. And in year 1, which is basically this autumn and winter, we're going to be doing an informal 2-day local style specific initial training. So with hedge laying, there are a lot of different styles, and they're all sort of different styles to different counties. They change because of the different stock they're trying to hold in. So if you're trying to keep a cow in or a sheep in, you need a slightly different style of hedge. there's quite a lot of styles just in Wales alone. So we're going to be making sure that the initial training that we do in year 1 is specific to that style for that area, or traditionally for that area, so that we can keep obviously that we can keep those skills going really, and sort of keep that look going. The National Hedge Laying Society do attend a lot of events. So they do attend the Royal Welsh, which they did again this year. And they have kind of a table with some demo versions of different styles, which is quite cool to look at. You can sort of see the difference in all them, which is quite good. And then in year 2, possibly year 3, we're going to be doing some accredited training in hedge laying. So it's completely optional. If people want to go ahead and do this, they can. But it'll be the official LANTRA 3-day training. So this is basically kind of your official sort of ticket, really. Some professional hedgers don't have this qualification, but it is kind of your first qualification into getting to be sort of an official hedge layer. And again, it's a really good training. You get an assessment at the end of it and get kind of your bronze award as part of that. And again, it's kind of a development thing. If people want to do it, they can, but they don't have to. So we're going to have some more accredited training by another one of our partners, which is Adult Learning Wales. So they're going to be delivering a Creating Heritage and Traditional Craft unit, which will be 20 guided learning hours. And that's going to be sort of starting September, October time. Again, this was sort of done through the development phase of the project, where we spoke to some learners and spoke to different members of the community of kind of what sort of course they would like. And they said that they actually really enjoyed kind of that crafty kind of well-being element to it as well. So it's all going to be around different types of weaving, and that's going to kind of develop through the project. And again, this is going to be run every year in each of the areas as well. We're also going to be working with the People's Collection of Wales. So this is basically kind of like an online museum in a way, but it's a living museum of people's stories, of Welsh people's stories, people that live in Wales, where people put different things on there. So kind of one of the things that's on there at the moment I noticed is stuff around kind of COVID and lockdown. As much as like it is all kind of in recent memory, in 20 years time, we're not going to have those memories there, but actually different accounts are on there. So photos, different kind of oral stories of kind of the things people that happened and that kind of thing. We brought this in because it'd be really good, one, to kind of create a lasting legacy for the project, but also it's going to be a way that we can actually document things about Welsh hedgerows that we discover, things of the different tools, stories of volunteers. And it's also going to be a nice accessible volunteering opportunity for those that want a kind of more desk-based role. Again, some of the people we spoke to in the development of the project love the idea of the project and the history of it and that kind of thing, but actually didn't want to go out and plant a tree and didn't really want to lay a hedge, but actually being able to kind of wormhole into this kind of stuff and put their stamp on it this way was really interesting to them. So yeah, we're really excited to be kind of working with these. And this is kind of at the bottom, you can see a couple of the examples of some of the kind of collections that are online on that. Again, you can have a look at sort of People's Collection of Wales online. It's bilingual as well, so it's funded by the Welsh Government, and they're going to be doing some training with us as well. So there'll be a initial training with us to get that kind of set up initially. Come on. Oh, there you go. So yeah, there'll be an initial training. Oh, too far. Initial training session, which will be in October. So that'll be an hour just kind of explaining a bit about the People's Collection of Wales. And then there'll be a how to publish material, which will be in person. So we're going to be doing one up in Wrexham on the 11th of November, and then one down in South Wales on the 18th of November. So we're in the process of just confirming some venues for those. So as soon as we've got all that available, it'll be sort of on our website, it'll be on our social media and on our Eventbrite page as well, so people can log on to that. But yeah, we'll be getting the October one up soon anyway. So that should be a really good day. I think some of the locations we're thinking about sort of doing it in different museums and that kind of stuff. And it'll be about how to publish sort of the material, things like GDPR, but it'll also be looking at how to sort of list it and log it and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully we'll have some nice cool tours around the places as well. And then what we're also going to be doing as well is doing kind of a, can't see that. So the Hedge Road Champions. So effectively, these are going to be sort of the volunteers that we've had as part of the project, that are going to be building kind of a community of volunteers within each county. So each of the hedges that we either plant or lay will have their own management plans, which is basically how we're going to manage them longer term. So, each year it will say whether we need to trim them, whether they need to be laid, and this kind of thing. And to kind of keep that going, so a lot of people we spoke to that had done hedge laying before, done some training around it or volunteered doing it, were like, yeah, we really loved it, but actually we don't know where we can go and lay hedges now. So what this will basically do is it'll keep those volunteers together. It'll give that kind of peer-to-peer learning as well. And it means that they'll be able to sort of share those skills across the year. And it also means that these are going to be looked after longer term as well. The county management plans are going to be held both by Keep Wells Tidy and also the local authorities as well. So that between us, we can obviously G up all the volunteers and get them looking after it. Like I said, it kind of gets that peer-to-peer learning going as well, which is really good. So, a lot of the times you kind of do some training, and if you don't redo it, you forget. So having that kind of peer-to-peer learning where people can go, oh yeah, remember this bit, right? Yeah, come on, let's go and do this bit, and that kind of thing, can really help build confidence long term. It also means we'll be looking after the hedgerows into the future. I think we've all probably seen when projects happen and things are planted and then it's not looked at and it just sort of, kind of falls apart. But with this, it's going to sort of get that stewardship going. And it's a really good laugh getting out and getting muddy in a hedge and, looking after it longer term. So it should be really, really good. So we've got some sort of themes of the project as well that we were going to be running as part of these webinars, as part of our social media, and as part of some of the activities we're going to be doing as well. So hedges are amazing, but it's not just kind of a tree. It's not just a hedge. There are a lot of different things linking into it. So nature-friendly maintenance is one. So again, it's looking into more kind of trimming ways that they can be flailed in a more nicer way, and obviously the hedge laying as well. Food and medicine, this is kind of what we've used them for kind of generations and generations, both for people and for nature as well. So again, that's going out and getting some blackberries when they're done. There's a lot of sort of medicinal benefits as well to a lot of the sort of foods that you can forage from a hedge. Also looking at kind of the natural value to urban environments. So again, that's kind of looking at those things I mentioned earlier about using it as a sound barrier. I think we're all kind of aware, obviously, with these sort of heat waves and everything at the moment of, the more barren concrete areas are hotter, like putting trees in more urban environments does bring that temperature down. So we'll be having the Woodland Trust sort of talking a little bit about that because they've got their tree equity scheme that kind of specifically looks at urban environments and the sort of effects of different trees, and that kind of tree cover then of how we can kind of keep sort of our towns and cities a bit cooler and a bit bearable with climate change and all these changes we're having. And then the other themes we've got then are wildlife, which is always a really nice one because we get to talk about hedgehogs and all the other really, really nice creatures that depend on hedges. Well-being. Again, we all kind of know that nature's good for us, but just really talking about that and just really talking about people's stories about how, nature can be effectively a free therapist, which is really quite nice. And the sort of benefits of people's well-being of being in nature. Also things like citizen science. Sounds more complicated than it is. But things like encouraging people to get involved in the big butterfly count that's on at the moment with butterfly conservation, the big bird count that RSPB do. And again, just looking to kind of register all these things. We'll be doing some training as well around biodiversity recording and getting that sort of registered on LERC, which is the local environmental records centre, which is basically kind of where all that data is held. And that's quite fun. It's quite enjoyable because it's basically like Pokemon for adults. I find it quite enjoyable. So we'll be doing some of that as well. And then the other bit is kind of around cultural traditions and historical importance. Like I said, obviously I've talked a little bit about obviously the history of hedgerows, those sort of different styles and everything and kind of why they are important. And the picture on screen is that lady on the left is Valerie Greaves. So she is a big trailblazer when it comes to hedgerows and she is amazing. You wouldn't mess with her. So she was actually a teacher by trade, but she loved hedges. She grew up on a farm. And she was one of the 3 people that set up the Hedge Laying Society. So if it wasn't for her, and I'm sure she was the one who pushed it as well. So if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have the Hedge Laying Society. We wouldn't know about all these different styles that are available, and she wouldn't have kept it in the forefront. And she actually wrote Hedge Laying Explained, which is a book that a lot of people still refer to because it's got some really good diagrams. Like you could read, anybody in any language could read it, and you could tell she was a teacher because the diagrams are really, really good. They explain different styles, different tools, all this kind of stuff in a really, really simple way. And they're really good. But yeah, she's amazing. So we'll be doing a bit of information on her around Women's Day and that kind of thing, and really celebrating her. She's unfortunately passed away now, but yeah, it wouldn't be the way Hedge Laying wouldn't be in the forefront the way it is if it wasn't for her. She actually turned up to a Hedge Laying championship in her 50s, I might add. And she was the first woman that turned up. So they all kind of panicked. I was like, oh no, okay, we'll just set up this class for you, for women to compete in. Obviously she won in class that year, but yeah, they kind of panicked and ended up setting up a women's class as well, because she was just like, well, I want to compete, end of conversation. So yeah, she definitely knows how to get stuff done. But yeah, we'll talk a bit more about her when it comes to like Women's Day and everything. So obviously part of this is us doing these webinars. So obviously this is webinar number 1. We've got another one then on the 28th of September with the theme of Wellbeing in Nature with Coed Danu. So Coed Danu are a CIC based in RCT who do wellbeing sessions with nature as a focus. And there's going to be some really good, it's going to be less like death by PowerPoint like this one's been, unfortunately. But it is going to be more sort of more of a chat and talking a bit about what they do and a bit about their personal experience with nature as well, and how they've found that kind of really those well-being benefits in nature and how it's sort of helped them personally. In the autumn then, linking into the sort of theme of planting and nature-friendly maintenance we're going to have in as well, which will be a really, really good one. So we'll be announcing that shortly. And then our theme in spring will be wildlife, where we can talk about all the cool animals and bugs and everything that rely on it as well. So we've got some events coming up through the summer. So in each of the counties, in Cardiff, Caerphilly, Neath, Port Talbot and Wrexham. Keep an eye on our social media for these because we'll be advertising them on there. So yeah, we've got a couple going through the summer holidays. So some events will be joining. So some of the events that local authorities and that kind of be putting on will be at, and also we'll be putting on some events ourselves as well, where you can come and have a chat about hedges. We can tell you a bit more about the project and do some fun activities as well. Like some of them, we've got some face painting involved. We'll be doing some bio blitzes on some hedges, which sounds quite harsh, but it's not. It's literally going through and working out kind of what species and stuff are within a hedge, and not just the actual trees, looking at all the bugs and everything as well. I did one recently at an event we did. And when the person that found the hedge for me, they're like, oh, it's a really rubbish hedge. It's going to be really rubbish. I was like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. I was like, look, if it's really rubbish, we only find a couple, like as a learning experience as well. But actually, we found about 45 species of different bugs and plants and that kind of thing that were all worked into this seemingly rubbish hedge that they kind of said. So it's usually really enjoyable. And lastly, if you obviously want to find a bit more information, you can scan the QR code on screen, which will take you to our website. A lot of our events and everything will be on there. And obviously we've got them on our social media channels as well. So we've got, for the Urban Long Forest specifically, we've got Facebook and Instagram. And then obviously we've also got the Keep Wells Tidy YouTube channel as well. So all that information will be on there. And that is the end of my death by PowerPoint. You'll be happy to know. So Jack is here as well. So we'll go through any questions that have popped up, or if you've got any more questions, chuck them in the chat and we'll answer any questions.
Yeah, that was it's such a wholesome project, isn't it?
It is.
Forest.
It is a lush project, and I can talk about hedges for hours. It's quite nice. But yes.
Yes, well, we've had some questions sent in for us just to kind of explore. So we've spoken about the 4 local authorities that we're going to be working in. Is there going to be any plans to expand into other local authorities or other areas around Wales?
So unfortunately at the moment, no. So our funding currently is for the 4 counties through through the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Like I said, if people are outside of those areas and they do want to get involved, you're free to. If you're willing to sort of come across counties, that's completely fine. That's not saying that we won't expand in the future. If we could find more funding and that kind of thing, we could potentially work in other counties as well. But at the moment, it is going to be kind of in those 4 counties for any capital works, which is basically any planting, hedge laying, the tree nurseries, that kind of thing as well. Obviously, we will be doing online stuff. So anything that's online, anybody across Wales and anywhere across the world, I suppose, can get involved. But yeah.
Yes. A bit of a fun one. What's your favourite tree?
Oh, my favourite tree. Oh, see, I'm going to be it's going to sound really, really basic, but it has to be an oak. So my grandparents are from Nottinghamshire. So once a year we would go and see the major oak, which is probably where my love for trees and everything came from originally. And I used to love going and seeing, I've never actually been up to it because obviously the fence was still in place. But my grandma used to tell me that when she was younger, she used to be able to like run up to it and she used to be able to go and hide in it and all that kind of stuff in the cavities, which was really, really cool. So yeah, and I know obviously the news has come recently about the major oak sort of dying, or at least going into her dying stage. But they're still really important for biodiversity purposes. There's still gonna be loads of bats that are going to be living in her, and it'll probably still be there for another 1,000 years. Do you know what I mean? So she's not dead. And oaks on themselves can support up to about 2,000 species, which is incredible. When you look at all the different kind of species, all the different cuckoo sort of plants, where you have like a little plant that's growing on top of it. So especially with some older ones, you'll see ferns and different trees and everything that will kind of grow on it as well. So yeah, it sounds a bit basic, but like I was saying, oak.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I don't think it's basic at all. Oh, brilliant. So for an audience member, so who can get involved? So do you think you need a lot of knowledge on hedgerows to get involved in the Urban Long Forest? So is it more open for everyone? Yeah,
not at all. Do you know what I mean? You can come in as a complete newbie and not, I think everybody knows what a tree is, but like you can literally come in with no knowledge at all. We will kind of go from a very basic level all the way up to, people can wormhole into it as much as they want, really. With things like, we'll obviously be doing planting days. Planting days are really cool because it's a good chance to sort of get on with and plant it. It's not like for some of the orchard trees, you'd be digging a hole, but when you're planting a whip, they're literally about this big. So it's literally kind of quite basic. But it's actually really enjoyable and really satisfying because you can actually plant quite a lot in quite a short space of time. You get that instant thing of you can see that tree and it will sort of grow over time. With the hedge laying, we're going to be doing obviously the training with that. We've got some really, really good trainers that are going to be getting involved with that explain things really, really well in really, really basic terms as well. And we'll have different staff to support as well. So it's not just me doing the project. We've got 4 project officers that are based in the different counties counties that we're going to be working in, who are going to be supporting the project. And yeah, they're going to be supporting as well. So yeah, literally anybody, even if you just fancy coming to see what it's about, you don't need any knowledge at all.
I think that's what's really nice about it, is that maybe for people who haven't had an interest in hedgerows before, they can actually come along and find out a lot more. Like we've got our events coming up, so people can chat with fellow staff. So for example, we've got one coming up in Caerphilly, in Esher Mynach. So that's one example of time where anybody can come. You can even come and speak with Morgan. And
I'll be there.
I'll be there as well. Oh, brilliant. So the last question I have for you, so it's quite an open question. If you could use one word to describe Urban Long Forest, what would it be?
Oh.
In one word.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a nice question. I think diverse, if I'm honest. So both plant species, it's probably about 20 or plant species you can get in a hedge. And I think the project as well is really diverse. The amount of random stuff, it does sound a bit random. The amount of random stuff that we're sort of doing as part of the project, is amazing. We're going to be able to do loads. So, we have got obviously the planting days. We have obviously got the hedge laying days, but we've also got that kind of online element of it as well. So people can get involved with sort of local, bits and pieces like that. With all the different themes we've got going as well, I think it really keeps everybody involved. I think there's something for everybody, really. So yeah, I think diverse would be my word.
I love that. I say brilliant, because it is absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it's a really fun project to be a part of.
Yes. Fab. And that's the last of our questions. If you've got any as well, please make sure to share them in the chat as well. Or if you wanted to email them to us, and that's, is it Longforest?
Yep, longforest@keepwhilsttidy.cymru. Or again, obviously we've got our social media channels. You can keep commenting on this video if you want to, and we'll get back to you and sort of answer on that as well. And any more questions? But no, that's been amazing. So it's been great to see everybody getting involved and asking questions. Jack just popped the link to the website in the chat as well. If obviously you're looking on your phones, you wouldn't be able to scan the QR code. And it's been lovely to have everybody up asking all these lovely questions as well. So we shall end the stream now. We'll be back on the 28th of September with Coed Danu, having a bit more of a kind of chat rather than the sort of PowerPointy stuff. But I think for this one, it was good to obviously get all that across, just so everybody can kind of see what we got going on. But anyway, thanks for joining for webinar number 1, and we'll be back next month.
Diolch pawb. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.